So how do we refine research ideas? Obviously, it's difficult to come up with one research idea. And then how do we go ahead and refine it? Or how do we organize our ideas into something manageable? This is a question that is often asked at different research groups or in different gatherings by PhD students or even researchers, graduates. So if you want to know the answer for these questions, stick around, the video is coming next. Hey, what's up? Faizan here from Research Beast. On this channel, I share different tips and tricks for researchers, different motivational talks, and I also talk to experts about the research methods or anything related to research. So if you're interested in content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. Talking about how do we refine research ideas? Once you come up with a concept, how do you go ahead with that concept, expand it into something tangible, expand it into something like various streams of research? Obviously, to do this, you need to have some literature review. How do we organize that literature review? How do we bring multiple things that we are looking into something that is very manageable, into something that is concrete right in front of us? And how can we build up our research on something that originates from one research idea? So in today's video, I'll be talking about refining research ideas as well as organizing literature sources or the sources that come out of our literature review. So for most of the stuff that I'll be talking about in this video comes from my own experience and role of a supervisor as well as a student, graduate student, a writer, reviewer, as well as editor. But some of the stuff in this video is taken from an interesting book. I like this book a lot. And this book is called Planning Research in Hospitality and Tourism. Of course, it's written by Professor Levent Altenay and his colleagues. This is the second edition of the book. It's published by Routledge. What I'll do is I'll put the link for this book down in the description below. So if you want to get a copy of it, and if you can order it from Amazon, the link would be down below. That would be easier for you to order the book. There are some examples, very interesting examples in this book. So today, basically, as I said in this video, not only will be talking about how to refine research ideas, but I'll also talk about what is a concept map, what is a mind map, and what is a literature map. What are the differences, what are advantages, disadvantages, and when do we use either of them or all of them. And I'll also give you a sequence of how do you start with a concept map or a mind map going all the way to literature map. Of course, this sequence is just something that works for me. I'll explain some examples, but then in most of my videos, I say that these are different tools, and you're more than welcome to use any of these tools whenever required. So make sure that you watch this video till the end. We'll be talking about multiple things that are often overlooked, but these are tools that are not only important for researchers or students who are studying for PhD, but these tools can also be useful for people who or students who do not want to pursue research careers, rather they want to go in industry and work for some organizations. So of course these tools are research tools, but research can be applied in academia or industry. So I'll be switching into my laptop very soon, and then I'll share my screen so that you can see what I'm exactly doing. Thank you very much. So let's get into how do we refine research ideas, like I said. So normally, to refine research ideas, we have to start somewhere. So we normally start with the basic concept or a basic idea. So let's say when I'm talking to some of my students, when they come to talk to me about the research, about their thesis or any paper they want to work on, So the first thing I always do is ask my student, like, what are you interested in? So it always starts with, let's say, a research idea or a concept, or not idea in something like very tangible, but a concept. Like I have a student who is interested in corporate social responsibility, or if I have a student who is interested in ethical issues related to organizations, or maybe, let's say, word of mouth, or maybe, let's say, um, investor relationships, but it's always starting with an idea like this. And then once we have this, then the discussion continues, but the discussion shouldn't be haphazard. However, what we need to do is we need to use a tool called mind map. Now mind map is a tool used by researchers as well as people working in the industry. It's an image center radial diagram, and what it does is it creates a hierarchical diagram to show the relationship of concept into further concepts. So if we look here, here is a picture, and this picture shows a mind map for branding. And then what we do is normally we put branding in the middle, and then we continue think of the concepts that branding is related to. Normally we would think of antecedents or consequences of this concept, or let's say dimensions of these concepts, and then we would just keep going until, you know, wherever we want to go. So here branding is related to promotion, it's related to perceptions, results, branding strategy, value of branding, what are customers thinking about it, what do employees think about it. And then let's say if we think about customer, we think about customer's journey, awareness of customer, the desire towards brand, or would they purchase the brand. It just keeps going and going. So this is a tool that many people use in order to refine their ideas. And it also gives you further ideas, because when you look at this tool, it actually shows you different areas where you can make possible connections in the going ahead in your research journey. um, or what it shows is what do you know about this particular topic or concept existing. So you don't have to read anything about it, it just comes from your existing knowledge of different things about this particular concept. Let me show you an example of how we can apply this mind map for, let's say, a basic concept like vegetarian. Okay, so let's do an example of a mind map. Let's say if you have to make a mind map for vegetarianism or vegetarian, so many people opt to vegetarianism or decide to go vegetarian. So if let's say we have to do a mind map, the first logical thing would be to think about why do people go for vegetarianism. So even if I have a few friends, I ask them based on my understanding. Normally people would go for vegetarianism because of health benefits. So what I would do is I would just connect it like this, and I would call it health benefits. There are other reasons, like let's say some people go for vegetarianism because of in economic um, or environmental reasons. So I will just create something like this. Some people decide to go for vegetarianism because of, let's say, um, moral issues or ethical issues. And then let's say some people get into vegetarianism because of religion. There can be a lot of reasons, and then some people decide not to go for vegetarianism because of, let's say, uh, health risks or health dangers. So the reason why we have to also look at this is because the idea is vegetarianism, not why people go for it or why people do not go for it. So that would be some of the things that I can connect to vegetarianism in the first go. So these are some of the things that I would say are related to vegetarianism. Then we can also expand these further. So let's say if we think about health benefits, so what are some of the health benefits that people can get by going vegetarian? So let's say people who have allergies with some stuff, they can go vegetarian, and that's a health benefit for them. There can be other reasons, like let's say um, it's a low fat or low calorie diet. What other things can it be? It can be, let's say, uh, high fiber So some reasons like this. Then let's say if we look at economic or environmental factors, what can it be? So it can avoid deforestation. It can also have things like less methane gas. And what else can it be? It can avoid water pollution. We can also have other things. So I mean, there are so many things that you can think about. Of course, this takes time to think about. Moral issues and religion, even though I put them separately, but they also have a interconnectivity in between them. So some people also decide to go for vegetarianism because their religion asks them to do so, because of moral issues. So I mean, there's a definitely an interconnection there. Then in the religion, if we think about some of the major religions, let's say Hinduism is big on it. There's also another thing called let's say Buddhism. What else can it be? So some religion would be this. Moral issues would be killing other living things. uh, Maybe some people might look at religion and then also, let's say, historical progression. So these are some of the things, and if you want to go ahead, you can definitely go ahead, keep expanding this. But then again, the idea is for you to think of how one idea or one concept can be expanded into many more things. Now, clearly, when you do this, you would see that there are different areas in this map. If we look at this map right now that we have, you will see that some of the areas that we can see on this map are this one, this one, um, this one, of course, this one. We talk about health dangers. Health dangers can be things like low protein. Of course, if people are not taking meat intake, it would be low protein. There could be other things like, let's say, calcium or other things. So of course this would be another area. So if you, once you are done with this mind map, then you can go ahead and look at these areas and see what, and you can answer the questions that I just talked about in the PowerPoint slide on which areas do you have more interest and why do you have interest in those areas, and if you have any resources available to deal with those type of research questions.
So once we have this one, then the next step is to actually go ahead and look into four things. Number one is there any part of this concept map that interests you in particular, or is there one part of this mind map that interests you in particular? Why are you interested in that part? So this is something very important for you to look at, and this would be the first step of refining your ideas. Number two is uh, remember that your concept map is completely based on what you already knew about this topic, because you are not reading anything. It's just that you sit one time and you think about the concepts that are related to the main concept. So think about the things that you do not know, or what is it that you would want to know about this topic. You can write some of these ideas and questions, and that would be a follow-up research or follow-up topics that you can look into. The third thing is, um, once you have these questions, now you look at these questions, and you look at specific elements of those questions that might interest you. And then, of course, you have to make some notes for yourself on why are you interested in these things, or what is it so specific about those things that interest you. Remember that all this is very initial. However, when you make these notes, this would help you to write your research context or the background of your research later on. Now, once you have these multiple ideas from here, then you have to think about the resources that you have. So, because most of the viewers of this channel are PhD students, but we also have some people who are experienced researchers or people who have already finished a graduate study. So it's important to understand what stage of research you are at. Are you a master's student or a PhD student? How much time do you have to do your research? What type of resources you have? What type of financial resources you have? Do you want to look into industry magazines or research articles, or are you creating a report for government, or are you putting things on the website? What is it exactly that you are trying to do? Once you have this idea, then you can start shortlisting the ideas from stage 3 and come up with one or two main ideas that you can go ahead with. So this is something which we call it mind map, and mind map normally gives you multiple ideas. One example of mind map is let me do one example of mind map right in front of you, and then you can have an idea of how we develop mind map, how can we cluster the mind map, stuff like this. All right, so once you have this mind map and you highlight some key areas in your mind map, then what we do is we start looking into the literature. And for literature review, there's always this question of, okay, so many students have this question that if I have such a specific narrowed down topic, what am I going to write in my literature review? Or how am I going to find the literature review if I have such a narrowed down topic, which is a legitimate question. However, I always tell my students to work smarter rather than work harder. And how what it means is simply that whenever you are doing your literature review about the topics that you have shortlisted from mind map, you need to use some tools, and I will introduce some of these tools that you can use. This is something that was done by one of our librarians at USF, Miss Jessica. The direct link is down below. You can obviously put this link into your browser and download this document in PDF format, and then you can use it for your own literature review. We call it smart searching, and what it simply means is if you look at point number 1, it is what are you interested in research. So here you have to put your idea that you shortlisted from your concept map or mind map, or rather we should call it mind map. Here we are going to put the topic that you are interested in from your mind map, and then that topic should be converted into a specific question that you want to get answer for. From this question you need to come up with some keywords, and then we normally use Boolean operators, which is and, or, not. In this case we will be using and or. So let's do an example. So let's say if because my research is consumer behavior, so let's say if I'm interested in customer experience. Now, once I do this mind map, I come up with some question that is related to what are the dimensions of customer experience in theme parks. So let's say this is what I want to look at. Now, once I do this, in this question, I have to highlight some keywords. So let's say keyword number 1 would be customer experience. Number 2 would be dimensions of customer experience, and number 3 would be theme park. So these are 3 keywords that I can use. Now, of course, if I use these 3 keywords into any database search, what I need to do is I need to use Boolean operators. So let's say what I would do is customer experience and theme park. So I need to find results where I need to find papers or all the literature that has customer experience and theme park. So both of them have to be present for me to get that in the result. And then of course sometimes we have to refine the search, or sometimes you may not find enough literature. In that case you can use or, which is one or the other. And normally what we do is in this case we find synonyms or words that are interchangeably used for the keyword. So in this case I would call it, instead of customer experience, consumer experience, and then instead of theme parks I can also call it entertainment parks. So I can use things like this to really work smarter to find the relevant literature. Let's do an example. So let's say I go to Science Direct, and in this Science Direct I want to search something exactly about what I just showed you. So normally I can put things in keywords, but rather what I would do is I would go to advanced search. So once I get here, now here is where I need to find articles. So what I do is I put here customer experience and I just search. So when I search, here is almost 180,000 results. And if you see, there are like customer experience, blah, blah, blah. There are a lot of different type of results that I get for customer experience. But if we go back to Boolean operators, we wanted to know customer experience and theme parks. So what I would do is go here and right after customer experience, I am going to put and theme parks. Now, when I put and, it has to be in capital for the system to understand that this is a Boolean operator. And then I search it. Wow, here we go. Wow, interesting. So the first paper is my paper. But anyway, regardless, so now I get these results, and these results are about customer experience and theme park. So if you look at the title, here it shows customer experience and theme park. And for most of them, you would see that it says customer experience, theme park. So now instead of 180,000, your results are basically 7,700. So this gives you an idea of pretty much relevant literature. Now, if you are writing a paper, normally we want to have latest literature reviews. In that case, you can refine it by, let's say, 2020, 2019, and 2018. So now you get just these results that were published in those years. You can, of course, select the type of the article or the publication title and stuff like this. So this is how you can do the searching. We can also do customer experience and theme parks or parks. In this case, the results would increase because now we are using all parks. So this will give us results that has parks as well. So this is one way where you can search your literature. Now, I want to highlight something here, and that is when you are searching, you have these article types. So you have review articles, you have research articles, encyclopedia, book chapters, and a lot of different things, editorials, and a lot of things. So the next thing that I want to talk about is how you can use or organize your literature review. So let's look into something else. And this is something where we call it evaluating sources rhetorically. And the whole idea is whenever you pick up a research paper, there are some questions that you need to ask yourself. Okay, looking at that paper, look at the purpose of the paper. What is the purpose of the paper? Is the purpose to inform, to argue, to persuade, etc.? Because sometimes you have review papers. Review papers are basically to inform people. Sometimes you have perspective articles that are basically to persuade. Sometimes you have critical papers that are to argue about things. What information or methods are used to achieve the purpose, or is the author successful in achieving their purpose? So these are questions that you need to answer after reading a paper. And if you think that that is relevant to you, then what you need to do is to keep that resource for you for to go further. But if your answers are in no and you think that these references or these sources are not good for you, you need to let them go. So once you evaluate your sources, the next step is um, something where you need to know what type of reference is used in what type of way. Now, of course, when you are writing a research paper, there are multiple things that you need to do. You need to argue. You need to make sure that you are making, of course, arguments. You are providing facts. You are providing some context. You need to provide the existing conversation or discourse about the literature. You need to find the theory. You need to provide theoretical definitions, and many things like this, right? So in one paper, there are a lot of skills that go into that paper. And you may have heard that many people say you cannot use Wikipedia reference in your literature review. The reason is because some references are used, uh, different references are used for different type of purposes. So there's a model called beam model, and beam model helps you to understand how can you organize your literature based on the type of sources that you are looking at. So sometimes what we do is in our paper normally what we do is we have a background. In background we provide the context of the study, we provide facts, or we present some authoritative information just to build up the base for the study. Then in your paper you also provide exhibits which people have to interpret. It's like figures or graphs or tables. In these things you normally provide evidence or you include primary sources based on data and stuff like this. The entire literature review or research gap or research problem is based on argument. And in this type of thing, what we need to do is we need to bring the existing conversation or discourse about the concepts, or we need to engage with the existing conversation. Many papers are rejected because the reviewers think that the authors did not engage in the existing conversation about the topic. So here either you refute the existing literature, either you refine it or extend it or even confirm it, and that's what we do normally. In arguments, normally you include secondary sources, which is basically why we do literature review. And then is your method section where you provide the definitions of terminologies and concepts and how, and you also explain how are you going to analyze and interpret the exhibits or the data that you have collected. So for all these things, you have to use different type of sources. So let's say for background, normally you will bring things like definitions or encyclopedia articles or things or reports that are going to provide background or context of the for your study. For your exhibits or evidence, you need to bring literary works, your observations, scientific specimens, historical documents, primary data, and stuff like this. Arguments are mainly based on opinion pieces or scholarly articles, research papers, whereas methods is normally based on the references to theories or research method books or articles related to research methods. So this is how you can organize your literature review from the start on, so that when you are really writing your paper, you get an idea of which source is to be used in which part of your paper or your research thesis or dissertation.
Hey guys, if you think you are getting some value out of this video, please do not forget to hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel. I would also appreciate if you can share this video within your social networks or within your networks of people that may need this video. Going back to the video.
One interesting thing that we do is called annotated bibliography. This is something that many people overlook, but annotated bibliography is an interesting tool that people can use. And I think that if you are doing your literature review and if you find a research paper, you should directly put it into an Excel sheet. This is basically an Excel sheet. And what I can do is I will provide the link to these PowerPoint slides and this Excel sheet down below in the description of the video. So you can click on the link, it will take you to a folder from where you can download it. So here, let's say if I'm working on customer experience or experience economy, if I'm writing a paper, this is one paper I come across, Pine and Gilmore. So I put the citation here, I put the keywords of the paper, and then I put a summary of it. Now remember here, you don't need to copy and paste the abstract of the paper, because abstract of the paper gives you an overall picture of the paper. In this place, you have to provide your own summary of the paper. What do you think of that paper? In this column, you need to provide the authority of the authors. Like in this case, Pine and Gilmore are the first scholars to propose the idea of experience economy. Here, what it helps you with is, again, where are you going to use this source or this reference? So let's say if these are the people who propose the concept for the first time, I can use them in my research problem or research gap, research significance, as well as in my literature review. Then you have to put a comment here, and this comment is for you to say where are you going to use this paper in the future. So this is again for you to make it easier later on when, and here's why I say that you should do things smartly instead of working hard. I would also suggest you to organize these references based on the beam model, like I said in the previous slide, whether this paper will be used for the argument, for background, for exhibit, or for methods. And then here I provide the link just in case in the future if you want to go to the full paper again, you can click on the link and you can access the paper. Once you have multiple things into annotated bibliography, the next step is to go and find a literature map or create a literature map. And what we do in literature map is you put your main topic right in the start, like in this case, it's procedural justice and organizations. And then under that, you put three subtopics, things that you think are related to. And of course, this would be shaped after reading the literature. So in this case, I would put procedural justice, justice perception formation, justice effects, and organizational change. So once I put these, then what I do is I read the literature from different perspectives. So let's say justice perceptions, we look at motives, knowledge, organizational structure, climates, voice. So these are different subtopics that come from the literature. And then here you need to put some references that deal with this subtopic. Not only they deal with this subtopic, but they also deal with these associations between two variables. So this is pretty much like a map. And remember, when you are reading these papers, you also have to look at the future research suggestions of these papers and see which relationship is suggested to be explored more or stuff like this. And then that would also help you to come up with the need of study or need to study in the when you are writing for your research gap and stuff like this. So literature map is basically a visual summary of your existing research on the topic. It can be in a hierarchical pattern, it can be a flow chart, or it can be a mix of both. Either way, it works. So again, this is a tool that is there for you to work smarter on your literature review. Now, once you have your literature map, then what you can do is from the literature map, you can make a concept map which would go along to make your theoretical model or stuff like this. So from literature map, let's say here, let's say I'm interested in this variable and this variable and the association between them. So if we are interested, we pick up this and then we go further. Now, just to make this easier for you to understand, and the one here in the green is, let's say, an association that I'm interested in from my literature map. Now, this work was done by Professor Francis Buttle, and this is a paper called What's Hot in Contemporary Complaints Handling. So I'm just showing you this. So let's say I pick up this association and then I try to connect it to the concepts that I studied in the literature related to this association. So I make all of this, and once I make it, um, then I go ahead and see what type of areas came from this map. So this is a concept map which is like a top down diagram, and it looks into the relationship between all the concepts, including cross connections. So now if you look here connections are made within these concepts as well. This is much more specific and based on the literature. So now if I look, here are clearly four different groups of ideas that I can work on, and I can take them and I conduct multiple researches from one association. So again, this is just one way to refine your idea, go through literature, refine it more, and come up with multiple ideas from one concept. Going further, the last slide where I will just say that when you are making a mind map or a concept or literature map, there are a few things to understand. I'll go through some main advantages and disadvantages for both of them. So mind map is the initial one. It's easy to learn and apply. I mean, all you need to do is put your basic concept in the middle and then think about all the things that it is connected to. It's also creative. It helps you to express yourself. It provides a concise hierarchic overview, and it's also easy to extend and add further content. So you can always extend it as much as you can. The disadvantage of mind map is it's very difficult for others to read. So if you show me your mind map, I cannot understand it because I don't know why did you put the connections between different, or why did you extend a concept into, multiple things. Like in my case earlier, the example I showed you, maybe for me, I put how vegetarianism is connected to health benefits. Maybe for many people it doesn't make sense. So it's hard for others to look at. It only looks at hierarchical relationships. It can be inconsistent because, like earlier, vegetarianism, I connected it to health benefits as well as health risks. So it can be inconsistent, and sometimes it can be over complicated. These are the advantages and disadvantages of mind maps. Now, if you are doing literature map or a concept map, what it does is if you look at it, gives you a rapid information. Like if you show me your literature map or concept map, it gives me a very quick idea of what type of associations you're talking about and who is supporting those associations. It's very systematic because you go through a literature review process and add references to all the associations, and it emphasizes on relationships and connections among concepts. The disadvantage is that you cannot just create it, you have to read a lot about it, which makes it much more time consuming. And since you are reading and making it further, it can sometimes lead to losing the focus. So while your focus is on one association, you may be interested in other associations. A very interesting paper I would recommend for most of you to read is this one, and I've provided the reference here, is written by Martin Epler, a comparison between concept maps, mind maps, conceptual diagrams, and visual metaphors as complementary tools for knowledge construction and sharing. This is very interesting paper, and I would really recommend those of you who are interested in pursuing this further to read this paper. It has a lot of examples and a lot of interesting ideas. So, having said that, that's the end of today's video. But before going, I would say that these are tools, and these tools can be used by you in different scenarios. Now, of course, there is no proper set pattern of these tools, but what you can do is you can use them wherever necessary. These are tools that I use, or my students use these tools, or people around me use these tools. If you use any other tools, let's say if you use anything else other than this, which works for you, I would really appreciate if you can put it down in the comments so that other viewers of this video can also enjoy it. Thank you very much.